it was just me being me holding myself back because I felt like if I would have done the content sooner, I could have been much bigger than I am now. But I also see it from a point of view where if I didn't, do it at this timing, maybe it wouldn't have worked the way it did.
This is Sad Boy Radio.
What's the word, everybody? Welcome back to Sad Boy Radio. I'm your host, Matt. I'm a little low on energy because we just did Sueños. Not just me, but our guest today. He just performed his biggest set ever over at Sueños Music Festival this past weekend. He's done an amazing job building his brand, not only across one platform, but two platforms, Instagram and TikTok. And man, you've been able to open for some of the biggest artists in the world. More specifically, you opened for Rao Alejandro a couple weeks ago. Man, introduce yourself, bro.
So I go by the name of JTC in the mix, also known as Jason. Man, I've been going crazy this whole year has been a movie.
What's JTC even mean, bro?
JTC is actually my initials.
I assume so.
So it's Jason Trujillo Coria. That's like my full legal name.
Mm-hmm.
And my mom actually gave me the idea behind the name. She was like, "What do you think about JTC?" I was like, "That's it."
You just did the biggest gig of your career so far. You just played at Sueños this past weekend. How did that even come about?
Performing at Sueños kind of came to me at a random opportunity. I was originally playing Tono. I had a middle set and, obviously killed it at the set. You got to kill it. And I had got pulled on the side by William and Sway from V5. And they were like, "Yo, we want to add you to Sueños. You're added." I was supposed to be on it both days, but obviously we got to give opportunities to everyone, which is always a blessing. Everyone gets a chance. Everyone gets a shot. And yeah, the opportunity came, presented itself, pretty much straightforward, and the rest is history.
Being only 23 and being booked at basically the biggest Latin music festival in the world besides Baja Beach Fest, what does it mean for you to be able to represent this culture at such a young age?
It's an amazing feeling. Both my parents, they're immigrants straight from Mexico. And, for me, it was more of them seeing me because they had shown up. It was a surprise. I didn't know. I didn't see it coming. And for them to be like, "Yo, my son's here playing at this big festival," was the biggest blessing ever.
I understand what you mean when it comes to your parents finally being able to see what all the hard work is doing, right? Like I was explaining to you guys upstairs, I was able to get my dad into the festival, and my dad's a very how Hispanic parents are. They won't really say that was cool, but you could tell from the shit they're doing. I took my dad, I don't even know if I could say this for real, but the way I knew my dad was having a good time is, one, his smile, two, he had his phone out just recording his shit. I'm doing an interview, he's getting the behind the scenes shit. And it's not like I told him to do that. You know what I'm saying? So when I got home, I was like, "Oh, did you have a good time?" He's like, "Yeah, it was all right." I'm like, "You motherfucker, bro." And then, he calls me today and he's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, "I can't do anything for you today. I'm busy. I got to go record." He's like, "All right, keep doing what you're doing. Make something happen." Not "good job," not "damn," you're killing it. No, just keep doing what you're doing. Make something happen. I'm like, "You motherfucker, bro." But I say all that to say, a lot of the times when it comes to growing up in this culture, growing up in a Latino culture, we don't necessarily get the praise from our parents. But when they finally see oh, this is what it's bringing, right? It's bringing opportunities. It's bringing bigger and better things, not only for us, but for the people we've created, right? Our parents created us. So they see that and now they're like, wow, there's bigger and better happening.
I'd seen both of my parents in the crowd and I was like, "Oh, they're here." So I kind of started freaking out because I'm like, damn, it's my parents. So, around them, I get kind of shy. They know me as their son. And then everybody else knows me as JTC, the person that's about to go play at Sueños. So they got really emotional. They were, they were happy. They were crying. But it was a good cry. of like, we're proud of them.
Have they seen you perform before?
They've seen me perform a couple times, but never to that level. It's always been, smaller stuff. And for them to see me put all the work behind it, and it kind of paid off, where it's like I'm up and coming, but I'm getting there.
And even with that being said, right, you were a part of Sueños day one. You hopped on the mic over at a different set.
I'm actually like the shyest person you can actually meet, like, believe it or not. So once I hit that stage and I get that mic and that confidence, it just happens naturally. I like to say that's the normal me.
What do you think it is that changes?
Is me being, JTC. And obviously, I love talking to people. I love meeting. I love hyping people up. I like to make sure everyone has a great time.
Mm-hmm.
And, I like bringing our culture together. I like bringing people together.
Somebody I talked to this past weekend was DJ Dynamic. You met Dynamic?
I didn't get the opportunity to.
One of the things he talked about was the early struggle he found himself playing at American clubs, because he started in 2012 when EDM was a big thing. So when he'd get on the mic, they said he sounded too Mexican, right? Fast forward to 2018 through now, Latino culture, Latin hip hop, Latin trap all became these big phenomenons, right? That's what became the trend. So he talked about those early struggles that he found himself having because of where he came from. What are some of the struggles you found yourself having trying to establish yourself in this industry?
Not having the connections with people at times. Obviously, sometimes, when you need an opportunity or you need help, it doesn't present itself. So in those moments, it feels like a very dark time. And during that dark time, you got to figure it out. And, no one's going to save you. You have to save yourself. And during, certain opportunities or during times, obviously, I think for me personally, like, the struggle for me was having the door open. Having that door open was the hardest thing that I think I've had to go through.
What door?
The door of, being told no all the time, not having that confidence, sometimes being super shy and nervous to be around people, and not having that brand, not having a brand around, myself. Because obviously in this industry, you have to have a brand. You have to have some sort of, name, something creative. You have to stand out. And I've had to work really, really hard, 10 times harder than the average, like person that has it thrown at him sometimes.
So how did you finally open up that door for yourself?
Shooting content. I had just came out freshly out of college. I had no job. I was really depressed. I just slept in all day. And at a certain point, I was like, you know what? Let me try this TikTok stuff out, because I kept seeing everyone. So it was about my third video that I had done. I had done like a Chicago house one, and it blew up. So when that blew up, I just was really in love with shooting content. That was my call. That was like, okay, I want to do this. I don't know how I'm going to do it, but I figured it out. Luckily, I had all the interfaces because I had gone to school to be an audio engineer. So I had everything right in front of me. So used the tools and started shooting so much content and, upload every 2 days.
I just saw, have you seen those memes where it's like me having to go to my shitty ass job because I was too afraid to start dancing on TikTok during the pandemic? I'm like, man, I chose the wrong profession. When it came to starting the content, was there ever something holding you back from trying to pursue that lane?
I think it was just me personally holding myself back. I just felt so stuck. And, during dark times, during times where you don't know who to go to help for, you just sit there and think. And it was just me being me holding myself back, because I felt like if I would have done the content sooner, I could have been much bigger than I am now. But I also see it from a point of view where if I didn't, do it at this timing, maybe it wouldn't have worked the way it did.
Well, what was it that was going on that made you feel so stuck?
I guess having to prove myself to my parents of, this is what I want to do as a career, as a job, and obviously being in a Mexican household, it's like, oh, why don't you do this? Or why don't you do something that like really is kind of the normal 9 to 5?
They wanted you to go build houses.
They wanted me to like be an accountant.
Oh, they wanted you to be at least an office Mexican.
Yeah, an office Mexican.
They didn't want you to be like a mechanic.
No, they were like, no, you gotta do this.
My dad's a carpenter. So, the job I fell into. It wasn't like I went to school and said, hey, this is what I'm going to do. So even now, I'm at a point where it's like, I don't think that's really what I even want to do. You know what I'm saying?
I get you 100%.
When you messaged me, you talked about being stuck in a cycle. Why do you feel like you were stuck in that cycle? What was it that kept you there?
Going to school, being an audio engineer, and obviously in this field, it's very hard. There was no jobs. It was during the pandemic. So obviously you sit there and one thing led to another. And I've always been like kind of grounded, but also having those like certain dark thoughts of like, oh, this isn't gonna work. Like, oh, okay, let me do this. Let me try to do something normal, Because originally, like after graduating, I was like, oh, I'm gonna go to school to be an electrician. I did not go to it. I went for, I want to say, a month and dropped out.
Why?
It's not me. It's not who I really wanted to be. And at that time, you get stuck doing the content. You look at numbers and you're like, fuck, this isn't working. So I was like, all right, let's do this. So I fully dove into it, went to school for a month, and it was like, yeah, I'm not happy.
How did TikTok help you find that identity that you now have?
I just kept uploading videos. The views were doing great. The numbers were going up. And I kept popping up on Miriam's, algorithm. So eventually it was around August during Lala week. I was at Lala. Magically, I had service, and she's like, yo, I want to book you for Selva. I thought it was a one and done. And, I've stuck there forever now. And kind of building, around V5.
So then how has that relationship with V5 helped push you into a different stratosphere as a DJ?
Yeah, obviously it's a different format. It's more reggaeton, more Latin stuff. So obviously I was stuck playing a lot of like, older stuff. So being thrown into the club, I had to open up my music format, which I already was doing in the beginning. And I built around a lot of reggaeton stuff, a lot of dembow. V5 really opened a lot of doors. Because originally, the first time I was supposed to be like V5, I had done the audition, submission, and I got told no. And it wasn't time yet. But I was like, I'm supposed to be here. So just kept working, kept shooting content. And then 2 years later, I get the call.
So why was it you kept pursuing this dream knowing that you've already been told no? Right? A lot of people would have stopped at that first one.
Ever since I was a kid, I've always wanted to be part of V5. It's been everywhere. That's like the Chicago, DJ dream. So, obviously I got told no. And that made me want to work 100 times harder than like, staying kind of stuck and, because I used to play like a lot of like underground stuff, and obviously there's so much more. You want more. So I worked 100 times harder and just kept shooting content. Content has been the biggest thing for me. Whether sometimes I get content block or, I don't upload, I try to put something out there.
And that's what happens to a lot of people, right? They quit before they even make it to where they want to be. They allow their doubts and they allow everything that's happened to them to stop them from completing their goals. I think a lot of the times we're also scared to face the reasons why we're told no, right? We're too stubborn, we're too hard-headed to look in the mirror and say like, I'm just not there yet and I could be a lot better, right? And that's what you did. You looked in the mirror and you said, okay, I'm going to keep working. And I'm going to prove to you guys that this is where I'm meant to be. So for that, I'm going to give you your flowers, bro, right? Because you've been able to make it that far. And what you were able to do this past weekend by being a part of the festival, by being put on by them onto the festival, that just shows what hard work and dedication can do, right?
It's all about what you do. It's all about the work behind it.
But I want to talk about that TikTok following a little bit, right? You're at about, 60,000 now?
64,000.
Like I said when we opened this up, the way I found you was I kept coming across the TikTok videos. I saw the same logo that I was talking to on Instagram. I'm like, is this the same guy? Come to find out it's the same guy. I'm like, damn, he's going crazy on TikTok. What the fuck? And that was like 2-3 years ago. So seeing where you're at now, I'm like, damn, bro, like it really is amazing seeing what you've been able to do. How have you seen those results from TikTok transfer over into real life support?
You know, a lot of people that find me on TikTok are the ones that are always like, yo, where you at? What club are you playing at? What bar are you playing at? And those are the people that, you know, come and show the love and the support and will be like, yo, you fucking killed it. And with that following, you know, it's a lot. It's a lot of people that you got to cater to. And it's all about, you know, you being you. The same person that, you know, you'll meet is the same person on the internet.
So who is JTC? What is the identity that you were able to find through TikTok?
So the identity I was able to find was, you know, being the person that's, you know, out and going, supporting others. I'm so nice to everyone. I can't be an asshole. That's not me. If you like come up to me, you'll be like, yo, you want a picture? Like, or do you want to like hang out? Like, do you want to come into the section? I'll get you up there. I'll be the cool person. Cause I know a lot of people like have bad experiences and they'll be like, fuck, I don't want to go to the club anymore. I got kicked out by security because I was trying to go up there.
How many times you been kicked out by security, bro?
Me?
Yeah.
Me personally, I have not been kicked out.
And just him, right?
Yeah, just him.
You know, what I think about a lot of the times is that when you're building something, well, I don't think about it a lot anymore, but something I used to think about a lot was while I was building this, there were a lot of things that I was losing. There were a lot of things I was willing to lose. You sacrifice a lot. Time, relationships, friendships. There were times where I completely thought I wasn't friends with people because I hadn't talked to them in a long time. There was a relationship that I was just like, man, if I lose it, I lose it. And that time that you sacrifice, you don't even realize that you're losing it. You know, you're just on the grind. You tell yourself, this is what I need to do to be successful. This is what I need to do to get to where I want to be. To where I've always told myself I'm going to end up in life. And eventually you get all these things that you dreamed of. And you look back and you're like, well, was it really all worth it? And the song I think about is G-Eazy, Everything Will Be Okay. When he says, contemplating just who I could have turned out to be. If I had stayed and weren't heard, what would amount to me? If I had looked and ain't found what I have found in me. I mean, inside, would they love me, never look down on me? I'm going to read the next part too. They say, you know, if you loved her, well, then you would have stayed. You could have made a perfect pair that people wouldn't trade. Trade for nothing I did, though I had to chase it. Face it, I wasn't born to live a life basic. I've been listening to that song since I was like 15. So I always knew that what I wanted to do in life, there was going to be sacrifice. It was almost like this was conditioned in me. Like, if you're not willing to sacrifice all of these things, then are you really going to make it to where you want to be? You know, I know he knows. Because this lifestyle is not easy. For you, you stay up all night. You sleep all day. I don't got time to text you back. I don't got time to call you and say, damn, good night. right? There's people that you're not able to see. What is it you found yourself losing throughout this process that's hurt you the most?
The one that hits home is, not being able to be there for my siblings, where it's long hours of the night. Obviously, they go to school and stuff, so they're never home. And when they're never home, I'm home. But once, they're home, I'm gone. After 9 o'clock, I have to be out. If I don't sacrifice that time of, leaving at this time, I don't know where the opportunity is going to come again. I don't know if I'm going to hit those goals if I don't sacrifice that time. And, there's days they pull me to the side and they're like, hey, when are you going to be here? When are you going to make time for us? We missed when you were home. And, there's days where I just sit there and I cry because it's like, wow, I'm not here. I'm not home.
Why is it you feel like it's taken such a big mental toll on you?
Obviously, a lot of the comments that they'll like say, or my parents will say, they'll be like, nunca estás en la casa, siempre estás en la calle. But in reality, in those moments, I'm working. I'm trying to get to where I need to get to.
Do you feel like it's a guilt that's sitting with you?
I think it is kind of like a guilt because, you sacrifice that family time. And once you sacrifice it, it's gone.
And again, going back to that comment I made earlier, it's like they don't realize what you're doing. They don't realize where you're trying to go until they see it come to fruition. Until there's something that they can physically see that was bigger than they had ever imagined. That's when they understand, like, oh, this is why he's doing what he's doing. What type of stability do you feel like you've seen your family has brought you?
Always being there to support, whether, I see it or not. Having that support behind the scenes is what matters. Because if you don't have that support from your family, you will hit a dark path. Especially in this industry where it's like you're out all night, you're out drinking all night, you're out, meeting people. And if you don't have that support once you get home, you're not gonna, be able to sleep right. You're not gonna be able to, be you. You're not gonna be able to be happy.
Is finding happiness and being in a good mental space, has it always been difficult for you to find? Because you mentioned earlier, I don't mean to cut you off, my bad. Because you mentioned earlier that after you finished school, you found yourself in a depressive state. You find yourself, without that support and that stability that you wouldn't really be happy. Do you feel like you've struggled with that?
I feel like I have struggled with that. Obviously, it all has to do with the people around you. Obviously, it could be friends, it could be family. It all depends on who you're around. Because before this, I used to have a big friend group. I used to be the one that they used to go to. Oh, we need advice, we need help. So when they would ask me for that help, I would give it to them. But when it came to me being like, yo, guys, I'm going through this, this, and this, it was like basically like a fuck off. Like, no, we're not going to help you. You have to figure it out. Those are supposed to be the people that they're your friends. And when they're not there for you, it's a really big downer.
But why do you feel like you put so much stock into them? Why did you feel the need to help them at so many different instances?
I'm an outgoing person, so I'm going to go out for you whether or not sometimes. And obviously it's been a struggle, but there's been moments where I'm like, yo, I'm going to put myself first. I need to put myself first. Now that I, put myself first more, it's been like, yo, like your friends are gone. You have to leave people behind. These are not your friends. If they can't be there specifically for you either, why be there for them?
At what point was it you realized that?
The point where I had realized it was when I started making more content. I wouldn't go out. I would lock myself in the room 24 hours a day. So they would be like, yo, JTC is never here. He doesn't have time for us. He's an asshole. And it would be like, yo, like I'm not. I'm trying to make this happen. I'm trying to build what I want to build. I can't get stuck being in a garage all day smoking weed and getting high.
Everything changes once you're on a different path. Once your frame of mind changes, that's when people start to look at you different. I was just talking to my mom about it. One of my homies, he like never answers the phone. Like never answers the phone. I'm like, bro, what's up with you? Like, and sometimes you look at it and you look at it like, what's going on with them at this point, right? Because a lot of the times, you hang up and you're like, whatever, like they'll call me back eventually. You keep calling, they don't answer. But sometimes it's like there's got to be something deeper. And it goes going back to that path. When you're on a different path from other people, like you don't even realize what's going on in other people's life because you're so focused on what's going on in yours. And that's the point you got to. You got to a point where these people didn't fit in what your version of life would eventually look like. What was that version of life that you were so focused on trying to build?
So what I envisioned was me being able to hit my goals. Obviously, you see people being successful, you see people doing things by a certain age. And when I didn't hit that, it touched home. It was like that, yo, you got to get your shit together. Because if you don't get it together, obviously you're just going to be lost. You're just going to be like, yo, why can't I do this? Why, a good example would be like, yo, why don't I have this career by like 25? Why am I not married or have kids? Or, there's certain aspects that you see.
Are those goals something you fear that you're not going to have at this point?
I don't fear it because I'm on the right path. I have to hit what I have to hit first before I settle down and do anything else.
So what is it you want to hit?
I want to be able to be successful in this industry. Obviously, there's multiple ways to be successful, whether it be music production, content, DJing, festivals. I want to do all of them. I have to hit all of them.
What is it you're going to feel content with in order to move forward with a different version of what life will look like, right? And I ask you this because this is something I used to ask the older DJs when I was 21. I sat down with Ozone. You know Ozone, right? I sat down with Ozone. I've sat down with all these old heads and, I've talked with them about, what are the things that you regret most in life? How did you balance these relationships while trying to pursue being the biggest out there? And when you look at a lot of people's lives, and this might upset a lot of people, when you look at a lot of these people's life throughout the industry, a lot of the times they're missing a healthy relationship. A lot of the times they're missing those people who they built something once with, and it all just fell apart. And a lot of the times they've said that it was their fault. Sometimes we're so focused on reaching a goal. Sometimes we're so focused on reaching this idea of what we envision happiness to be like that we forget to cherish the things that are making us happy at that present moment. And I know that sounds so cliche. I know that sounds like such, damn, he's just hitting me with a line. But bro, I've been there. I fucked it up. So what is it that's going to make you happy and make you content? Not, I got to hit this, hit this, hit this, hit this. What is it right now that you can think of, right? If I were to do this today, then I could be like, okay, we finally hit the goal.
Obviously, like there's a lot of, stuff that I want to prove, specifically like to my parents, where there's been moments where they're like, yo, what the fuck are you doing? Like, please get it together. And during that, you just have to prove them wrong. It's all about proving people wrong. Because to be honest, I used to get made fun of it. Like they used to make fun of me like all elementary to like high school. Even college, they'll be like, yo, like, you want to do this? This is not possible.
What, the music?
The music, like just trying to get into an industry that's very, hard and competitive. I would get made fun of it.
How did you find that impacting you mentally?
It would make me want to, strive for more. Proving wrong. And, at a certain point, you do hit it. And then you're like, okay, what's next? Like, it's like a good feeling of success. Because at the end of the day, those are the same people asking to be on my guest list, or yo, can you get me free Sueños tickets?
Do you feel like there's a big difference between JTC and Jason?
Yeah, there's a big difference.
What's the difference?
JTC will like be the life of the party. He'll be on the mic. He'll be like the happiest person you could ever meet, showing everybody a good time. But then, you get Jason, and Jason's like a very calm, doesn't really go out, likes to stay to himself, is really quiet, and, doesn't like to party.
Why do you think you've allowed that difference to coexist for so long?
I just, it's a lot of like built up, having to build like an image around it. Because that's all, like in this industry, it's what it looks like. It's an image. Obviously, like I've met a lot of artists and they're like so happy on camera, but in reality, you meet them in person, they're like, I'm fucking depressed. Sometimes I hate this. I don't want to do this.
It's easy to lose yourself in something that you've wanted for so long, right? Because you dreamed of it. You wanted it to the point where you would have done anything for it. And when you get it and it doesn't feel like what you expected it to, you just have to accept that's what it is. So it's either you chalk up your loss and say like, damn, this shit sucked and go back to square one, or you accept it for what it is and you lose your identity and you lose this kind of like part of yourself because it doesn't make you happy in general. So why is it you felt like you had to let go of those friendships and those relationships along the way?
Because, they were holding me back. If I wasn't there for them, they were not there for me.
But what changed once you let those go? Because at that point, you really had nobody.
I think what had changed was that I had more time to myself, more time to sit in with my own thoughts, more time to, reconnect with old friends that I hadn't talked to in a long time because, those other friends would get mad. They would take it personal. They'll be like, yo, why the fuck are you hanging out with them? Why don't you hang out with us? But you have time for everybody else.
So you had mentioned that it's easy to lose yourself in this industry. Is there a fear that you will eventually?
Sometimes I do have that thought of I'm going to lose myself in the industry. I'm going to lose, that mental peace that I'm at. Because you do sacrifice that peace when you're in this industry.
How so?
The late nights catch up. They do catch up. The not being around catches up. Having, all your friends and family members, missing out on like important moments. They catch up. You get lost in it. But it's always up to you to kind of make that time and, get yourself together.
How do you ground yourself before you get to the point where you don't even recognize yourself?
I do find those little pockets of time. Like to make time for those certain people. To make time for, family or like whether, it's like just being home for like 2 hours. I'm there. I know it's not a lot of time and time's really important. But also, in this industry, you have to sacrifice time.
Throughout this interview, we've talked a lot about sacrificing time, those friendships that you talk about, not being able to see your family. Right? You've had a little bit of a taste with what this success feels like and looks like. But when it's all said and done, do you think that everything that you've had to lose along the way will be worth it?
I don't think it's going to be worth it. Not all the way. Because there's certain people that's going to be gone. There's going to be people that you don't talk to anymore. A good example would be like, my grandparents. Once, they're gone, I feel like I personally won't be able to deal with it. Because I have to put on that image of like, oh, I'm happy.
Why do you feel like you have to put on this image?
I feel like it's just the look. You have to, in this industry, you have to like put that image out there that, you're the life of the party. Because at the end of the day, people just see it like that's your job. You get paid to party. but in reality, it's so much behind it.
So break that down. What is behind it?
Behind it, like behind the scenes, you have to, you have to build your brand. So you got to do content. You got to meet people. You have to, go above and beyond, whether it's worth it or not. Because if you don't make that sacrifice, you don't know if you're gonna get that opportunity ever again.
And I think the thing mainly is the fact that it's not guaranteed. Nobody tells you that if you do this, if you do that, you're gonna be the biggest DJ in the world. Freddie. Freddie. You met Freddie, right? Freddie started off doing interviews on the radio. Freddie got fired from the radio station out in LA. And he used that and he turned it around and he started working at Baja. You heard his story about Baja?
I have not heard a story about Baja.
You don't know how he started working for Baja?
Not yet.
He started because they called him one weekend to go work at Papa's and Beer. And they told him, don't touch the mic. What do you think he did? He grabbed the fucking mic. He grabbed the mic. And then they started booking him for Papa's and Beer. And then he got Coca-Cola. And, that's their guy. So they brought him out to Sueños. There's things that you do along the way. And as long as you keep going, no matter what, you rebrand, you pivot, you take those hits on the chin behind the scenes. But if you keep going, you're going to end up where you need to be and where you're supposed to be.
It's all about timing.
You did it yourself, right? You got told no by V5. Ended up at V5 and ended up at Sueños. You made the sacrifices that are necessary. You've dealt with these mental struggles. What do you feel like's been the hardest thing you had to deal with along this way?
Not being able to take care of my own mental health. Because at the end of the day, if you don't take care of yourself, you're basically, you're gone. You just will be like a walking, soul, quote unquote. And, once you hit that point, I feel like it's a point of no return.
You're not that much younger than me, bro, but when I was 23, when I was 24, give yourself grace, but don't allow yourself too much because you get comfortable. And when you get comfortable, you start to lose sight of that ambition. Stay ambitious. Keep doing what you're doing, bro. You're killing shit. I'm happy for you. Genuinely happy for you. And yeah, man. Anything else you want to say?
My ads, make sure to check me out. JTC in the Mix on all platforms. I'm always putting content out. I'm always putting guest lists. And make sure to come out and have fun.
Make sure you go ahead, like, comment, and subscribe. Sad Boys for real. Peace out.
This is Sad Boy Radio.